farming's about, right?
I guess you haul it in and you haul it back out again, as the old saying goes. It never ends. It's a constant. But we thank the Lord that we've had good weather and we've got plenty of hay for this year, and so we don't have to fight that problem.
Bring her all in bulk and haul around that spreader.
Yeah, but less milk with the tremendous heat we've got. The milk production is down this year. So.
Now, this is Clarence Pluss. Today's September 12th, 1995. And we're the interview here with you. Growing up on the farm and on the farm and possibly president of the Swiss Cheese Deliverer Association. And we can add a few interesting stories on that. Dr. Bill Hine here is going to video it for the posterity of the future generation for this historic cheesemaking center. And Clarence, as long as we're right on it, this 95 has been a very hot year, right?
Yeah, that's right. We've had tremendous heat and, like I said, tremendous shortage of milk, and which has increased the milk price. It will increase the milk price, but it's not going to help us because we're going to have less milk, a little more milk money, so it comes out about the same. But we've had a good growing year. We've got plenty of crops, so that's the one good thing about it.
And you made a lot of good hay, right?
Good hay, yeah.
Hay was
Good hay,
the first crop there.
And looks like a good corn crop though. So anyway, in our area, we are lucky we had good rains. So
And I've seen though, they didn't come the first part of the summer there for all that first crop there.
Right.
They didn't think too much, right?
Not very much, but we've had a few showers that some of the other parts of the county didn't have. So, and as my dad always said, this is Green County. We get at least one crop, whether it's hay or whether it's corn, but we get one of them. So
Well, that's interesting. And we got our caps on. What did you say about reflection there? Show me.
we didn't want the bald head to reflect into the camera, so thought we put the caps on.
And you're promoting the Make Believe Cheese Factory there,
That's right.
which is a member of Swiss Cheese Member Association, and I'm promoting our Applejack. All right, you grew up on a farm, and you have your Swiss ancestry on both sides, right?
On both sides, and my grandfather on my dad's side came from Switzerland, and my father, when he went to country school, the only thing he could talk was Swiss. He was 8 years old. He had to wait for his younger sister to go to school because they had to walk to school. Grandpa wasn't going to take him to school. They had to walk. So when he was 8 years old, he went to country school, and all he could talk was Swiss when he went. And it's hard to believe nowadays that happened. And he was born after the turn of the century. And on my mother's side, her grandparents didn't come from Switzerland, but their folks did. So I guess I've got the Swiss background, and for the name of Pluss, I guess you have to be a little Swiss there. And my dad had, a few years ago, had over 20 first cousins living in Switzerland, and could talk Swiss just as fluently as, unfortunately, I did not learn it.
Well, you had to learn it at home. The folks both had to speak it.
Yes.
And I know that when I was the oldest in my family, and they spoke it, and of course that's what I had to live with knowledge myself. It was a traditional thing at that time, to the children learn their language.
Well, my mother didn't talk it, so she was said from Swiss. She was confirmed and learned her catechism in Swiss, but she never talked it. She could understand it, but she never talked it. And
okay, now where did you farm?
well, I farmed. I guess I've lived all my life. Matter of fact, I'm farming on which would be my mother's folks' farm, and so it's been all the buildings where I'm living were built in 1916. Back them days, there was a big farm, and my grandfather split it up and put another set of buildings there and divided it up to 2 farms. Now that's going opposite what it is today, but that's the way they did it. And so we're farming in the Albany area, which is about 3 miles west of Albany. I was born and raised there, and I'm still operating a farm there with my son and my wife and another young man that's helping us. And I'm lucky I've got a couple of young guys that are under 30 years old that both want to farm yet, if everybody will let them.
Well, what kind of days you put in, Clarence? You get up like when?
Well, we're not early risers, but we don't get done real early. I mean, we usually don't start till about 5:30, but there's a lot of nights we don't get done until 8 or 9. So, I mean, nights get a little short anyway, but it's gotten to the point where you can't hire help, so you do more of it yourself, and that's the only way you can survive.
How many cows are you milking?
Well, we're milking right around 100 cows.
100 cows.
So we,
Usually all Holsteins?
all Holsteins, we're milking all Holsteins. And we raise all our calves and steer out our bull calves and finish them out. So we're well over 300 head of cattle around there. And for 3 men, for 2 young men and an old man, that's enough work.
A lot of feed you got to bring in, as you talk about,
That's
all
right.
summer.
That's right.
A lot of feed all winter.
So I guess it keeps me busy there. I know the young guys wonder once in a while why I get so much involved with the Swiss and lumber and with maple leaf, but then they sit back and they look and I guess they understand why I get so much involved, because I was brought up in that involvement. I was brought up because my dad was very much involved in co-ops, very strong in all types of co-ops. He was very dedicated director of Maple Leaf and also of the Wisconsin Swiss and Lumber. And when Wisconsin Swiss and Lumber had over 100 cheese factories involved, he was a director involved in there. And I can remember in the early 60s when I started getting a little involved in it that, we came to meetings here at Turner Hall and had a dinner, and tremendous amount. Upstairs was full for a meeting afterwards, and I can remember Golly in there and Augie Berge involved in it. And of course, that's really when that's when I got involved in it, because in 1972, my dad decided it was time to let the young generation take over, so we bought the farm, and at the time my brother was living, and we bought the farm from my dad. And of course, once Dad was no longer involved with the farm, then he was no longer eligible to be a director on the Swiss and Lumber or on the co-op cheese factory, so he let that up, and I got elected as a director on the Swiss and Lumber and have served there ever since to this point.
When did you become president?
Oh, you asked me such questions. I'm guessing that I've been president there now for approximately 8 to 10 years that I've been president on there. And again, we're unfortunately with the Swiss and Lumber, we're getting to our twilight years. I think, we're getting smaller and smaller, and we're getting where we don't have the impact that we can do, the good that we used to do years ago. And because we had a meeting last night again, and Lawrence was telling how the one year how much they spent money, and I'm sure he maybe talked about himself, about Kraft with this springless cheese. But you have to remember, it was a good thing that we did have the Swiss and Lumber to fight these battles. And since I've been in the Swiss and Lumber, we've helped a few factories out that lost some money through a few cheese buyers that went broke, and so we had to help with it, with some, not so much putting any money in, but with lawyer fees to help to fight to get this money. And that's basically what we've tried to do, and tried to promote.
Now, when you grew up, your milk, you always hauled to Maple Leaf?
No, our milk didn't go. I was born in 1940, and we started hauling to Maple Leaf in approximately 1944 or 45. And I do remember as a little boy, before I went to school, riding along with my dad to Albany to the condensery. That condensery was in Albany. And I can remember sitting, waiting in line, might be 20, 30 trucks in front of you to haul in the canned milk. And the switch to go to Maple Leaf is really a unique factory. We were started in 1910. And I guess I can say we because I'm part of it. And we started in 1910. We've had exactly 5 cheesemakers since 1910. Now that is a pretty good average. The last cheesemaker, the cheesemaker that we have there now has been there, which is Jeff Weidman, has been there, and pretty much not quite full control, but he come in and started in there in about 1981. And so we've had, a real good relationship with all our cheesemakers. So I feel that our co-op has probably been a real strong farmers co-op to keep our cheesemakers there and keep them in the community.
And that's a unique situation, because usually farmers don't always agree,
Well, we didn't always either.
And I don't mean it in that respect, but people all the milk, they want to go grade A or something over here and say, well, I think the factories are finished. But and then I understand Jeff now moved to
Twin Grove.
Grove.
We done a lot of soul searching, and of course, the majority of our farmers, I would say 70% of our farmers were in a 3-mile circle of where Maple Leaf sat at Albany. And we got to the point where we wanted to get into more specialty cheeses, more of the specialty items. We needed more elbow room, more room to cool cheese, more room to pack cheese, to press cheese, and more different styles of presses to press the different forms. And I mean, we're involved with 20 different kinds of cheese that he's making down there. And don't ask me to name them all, because I can't, because he's always adding new ones to it with spices or something. And so we looked at the option that we had of buying or building onto the factory we had, or buying the Twin Grove factory from Albert Delper, who owned it at the time. And after a lot of searching with the farmers, we went down there and voted, not quite unanimously, but almost, to buy the factory and go ahead and stick our neck out and gamble and put it to work. And we've been down there now just a little over a year, and things are slow to start, boys, but it's looking up. It's looking to the point where, we're getting a lot of markets on the East Coast and the West Coast and all over.
But a wonderful thing, a group of people get together and say, here, look, we got a common interest and we can get along and let's all work together, and that's what it takes. There aren't many cooperatives that are still going anymore, there's a few here in Green County, but across the state, where there used to be almost 1,500, 2,000. Well, tell me a little bit about your boyhood there. You say you rode the pickup truck to
We rode the pickup, and I was going to tell you the story how we got switched before I get into boyhood. I was going to tell you the story about how we got switched to going to Maple Leaf. And we had a cheesemaker there, and he was, a good cheesemaker and all that. And he quit, retired, so they got another cheesemaker in there. And that cheesemaker met with Dad one day and asked Dad to come to Maple Leaf. Instead of taking his milk to Pep, bring it to Maple Leaf. Well, he says, goodness, he says, oh yeah, I'll come. So he went to Maple Leaf. Well, then the retired cheesemaker seen that. He come to Dad and he says, well, how come you didn't come when I was making cheese there? My dad says, you never asked me. And I mean, this is where we sometimes make our mistake, that we don't ask another farmer whether he wants to come to this small co-op. And nobody did. Dad says, nobody's asked me, so I didn't come. So when he got asked, he came, and Dad became involved in it and became president of the cheese factory, and again until he sold out. And then my brother became a director, and when he passed away, then I became a director. And we had tough times in the late 60s. As you were telling, a lot of farmers were pulling away, going grade A. It was hurting. Our factory was getting small. I was very concerned that, that we were going to be able to keep things going. At that time, we had a very good cheesemaker. Fred Oxner was in there. The Oxner boys were in there. And Ernie, they were in there making cheese, but people were just not staying involved with the factory. And then they went out and went to work and started knocking on doors and asking people. And we started bringing it back up. So then, when Jeff came, he kept building it up. And so that brought it up a little higher. And also, we started, when you talk about boyhood, I can remember riding to the factory with Dad. Of course, once went to school, you didn't anymore. But that was Dad's job. He always hauled the cans to the factory. And we didn't go bulk until about 1964. So when we finally went with bulk milk, we never had a cooler. We cooled our milk with water, Of course, hauled it in and made cheese every day anyhow, so you'd cool your night's milk with water and took cans in and you did.
Wash your cans earlier, or?
Well, no, we always had a can washer at the factory. They put in a can washer at Maple Leaf back in the 40s already, end of 40s, I think, late 40s, they put a can washer in, probably early 50s, and that can washer was getting more so bad that at that time Fred Oxner come to Dad and says, we've got to try to get these farmers on bulk milk. And of course my dad was always a little reluctant to have farmers go to bulk, because once they were bulk, it wasn't real hard for them to change over to grade A no more of that. And so he always of course, he always liked to go to the factory and talk a little Swiss in the morning. So, and I can remember walking into the factory and Dad would hand a quart jar of cream through the door with the cans, and when we'd get the cans loaded up, we'd go in there, or if we was in a hurry, he'd hand that jar out right off the separator. That cream would get so thick the next day you couldn't hardly chop it with an axe. I mean, and
little factory cream, they call it.
yeah, that was good. And I can remember going in. Of course, we made Swiss cheese there, Maple Leaf. And going in, and Dad would want some Swiss cheese, and they'd take the plastic off, and they'd have their big wheel at Swiss there, and their big long knife, and they'd cut the wedge off. What would he want? A couple, 3 pounds. They'd cut it off and measure, put it on their paper, wrap up paper, and take it home. And so you remember all those good things, and that's.
They say that still, it's like beer at a brewery. They still say you can't duplicate that flavor right out of the wheel or right there.
Right there, yeah. And so to that, why? And anyway, so I said, it's a real joy when you can do that. And I guess I've got some real good, because I was raised with a brother, and we were always on the farm. And what bothers me more, and I don't know whether it's our fault or partly, but we used to have more time to go to barn dances and stuff, and go see the neighbors and that than we do today. And I'm not sure whether it's our fault or not. But
well, I think somebody said here not too long ago, I mean, you have to milk, so look how many cows you're milking.
we used to milk 30 cows.
And it was sufficient enough to pay the bills.
Yeah. And we've continued to get bigger, and I'm not sure bigger is better. I'm really not sure that bigger is better. I think bigger may not be the answer to it. Still got to be more efficient.
You got to catch it in between.
Yeah.
Someplace, I guess.
Yeah.
How many can you milk and still survive and still
Enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life. And then you start getting the hired men or hiring this done, and there is a division there for the town. I've never found it yet.
And what really is bad in today's society is when you get bigger, it's hard to get smaller. And I don't care whether it's a cheese factory or whether it's a farmer. As you get bigger, it's really more difficult to get smaller.
In your family, how many children have you got?
I've got a boy and a girl.
And who's with you on the
My son is with me. Paul is with me. He's 29 years old, and then I've got another young man, it's Harvey Gish Jr., that owns some of the cows, and we're in what you'd call a limited partnership. So it's a little bit, you can't really compare to the 30 cows we had years ago, because now we've got really 3 families, living off it, and even though my son or the other young man aren't married, it's still 3 families that are living off.
Try to send some children to school today.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
You take flour sacks and make clothes for them and whatever, and so forth.
St. Clarence, we'd like you to talk about the store that you have now too with Maple Leaf.
Oh, with the construction with 59 this year, why, Jeff Weidman has opened up a new store. We've always had the retail store in the plant in Albany, but there again, that's one reason that we did move to Twin Grove is because of the liability with people coming in, and they always had to walk through our make room, and so your product liability starts to get to be a problem, and that's the reason that one of the other reasons we looked at going down there to make cheese. But you still a lot of the people that come to buy cheese still like the atmosphere of walking into a cheese plant. As one of our farmers always said, for some reason, if you go into the plant to buy the cheese, it always is a lot better than if you go to the store and buy it. But we're trying to, we've set up a new store in Judah in conjunction with Don Owen's Oasis there. He's provided us the building. Jeff is really pretty much running this. The farmers are not involved, or the co-op is not involved, except that we're selling our cheese
To Jeff.
to Jeff through this.
I was going to ask you that, now, are all the Jeff's farmers cooperative? Or
Yeah, we're all co-op. We started about 2 years ago buying some milk, but the farmers themselves, the cheesemaker's not buying the milk. The farmers themselves are buying the milk. So if we make a profit, it goes into our pocket. If we don't, we have to get a little sharper. I mean, Jeff is doing the buying, but we're doing the paying for it.
Still a cooperative, true,
So
real true sense.
it's a true sense. Jeff is not buying outside milk and bringing it in. The farmers are buying the outside milk and bringing it in. So we're running it through just like a co-op.
You wholesale the cheese to Jeff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
let him do what he wants.
And we get a premium for it through him. He pays extra for that amount of cheese that goes through there. And when he set up the cheese store, he didn't only set it up to sell our cheese. He's trying to get it set up that he can sell cheese from all the local factories in the area. That's his goal and what he's got in mind. And he's not only setting up to sell that, he's got wood cutting boards and items down there that Albert Delper are making, which the profit is coming back
to the historic cheesemaking
the
center.
historic cheesemaking center. And so Jeff is not making anything, he's just putting it in there and running it through and trying to help that way. And which we've got to help each other.
Yeah, the cooperative community spirit.
That's right. And what I really, being in the co-op as many years as I have, and the more you read, the more you see that the farmers are starting to realize that these small co-ops are the answer. More and more farmers we see are calling us and they're interested in the small co-ops.
I take my hat and tip it to you, maybe I'll refer to keeping that going, because I think the state of Wisconsin especially, people like to go to cheese factories. Who wants to go see not saying we don't need these big ones that promote, we need each other, as you were
Yes.
saying, promote. But it's the little factories that the tourists want to see, and that used to be the thing in Wisconsin, that they could walk through, and there'd be one here, and one there, and one over here, and
That's right.
gradually people are keeping it going.
Well,
Any more stories maybe on Swiss cheese Limburger, or what about some farming incidents that were humorous, maybe Holland milk,
I guess.
or going to dances, or going to country school, or
Well, I guess that one I would have to say that I did have the privilege of going 8 years to country school, and it was a mile away from home. The building still stands there yet. It was a Smiley school. It was one of the last ones in the county to close. And it always had, I would say, anywhere from 25 to 30 students in it. So it was a big school, and that's why it was able to prosper and keep operating. And I have very good memories of going to country school and going there early in the morning in the winter time when they had the furnace. And the teacher used to have to get there at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 and stoke the fire on Monday morning. And we'd all stand, there'd be 2 registers in the front of the school, and we used to all stand around that until the building got warmed up enough you could stand it. And we always, I can remember sitting, at your desk, and if some teacher'd be up there and she'd have all her students, and from either 2nd or 3rd grade, she'd be working with them, and somebody'd raise their hand, and she'd ask them what they wanted, and they were a 4th or 5th grader and had trouble with math. She'd look around at one of the 7th or 8th grade students that she knew was good in math. She'd say, "You go help with that student." So you talk about teachers' aides today, they had teachers' aides back then too, because the teacher was sharp enough. She wasn't only the teacher, she was the janitor, she was the nurse, she was a disciplinarian, and she also, blue noses, and we used to go out and play in the snow and get soaking wet and have to stand over that register to dry out. Yeah, no telephone to call home. Used to have to, the first few years, I used to have to go to the neighbors if somebody got sick and call home and get the parents to come. They'd send some. But then I would say the last 4 years I went to school, they did have a telephone. Yeah, we had to use the outside washroom facility.
Did you have a wash facility?
We had a sink, and the students, the older students, all had their duties. One of them for a week would have to carry, two of them had to carry in water for washing your hands, which was cold water, but you washed your hands before you ate lunch. We had some real good.
And a Christmas program?
We had a Christmas program that you pretty much shut school down to learn your program pieces, and we used to fill the church with fill the school with parents that they really got involved in it, and we had a prayer before we ate dinner. And today, why, that's terrible. But we had our prayer before we ate dinner and asked for the blessing, and and I guess these are things that you remember and really take to heart, and I think that makes you a well-rounded person. I don't know, maybe it doesn't, but I do feel it does.
They were, I think, very good cultural traits.
And,
Anything else, Clarence?
and like I said, I know some young men that went on to get their doctor's degree out of that one-room schoolhouse. So, I mean, I didn't go get a doctor's degree, but I know some of them that did. And so, I guess it's you learn to get along with other people more so. And it was quite a shock to go from that one-room schoolhouse to high school for a country boy. I mean, I'm sure I can sense what Dad had when he went and didn't talk anything but Swiss when he went to school at 8 years old. And like I said, I marvel with he went through 8 years of school, could talk 2 languages. And I went through high school and I can only talk one and have trouble with it once in a while. So, it's one of those things that happens that does that. But, no, I really, really strong in co-ops. I believe in co-ops. And I mean, even as far as not only at the cheese end and at the Wisconsin Swiss lumber end, but also on the feed end also. I mean, it's a rounded circle. I mean, we do a lot of our purchasing of our feed through co-ops, and so it's really a co-op effort, I feel. Because as we farm, if you're a family farm, you're farming in a co-op. I mean, so many of us think of it as a partnership, but it's really a co-op.
Main thing of unless the co-ops get too large or they aren't competitive with one another, I think then they become almost giants like corporations.
Well, if a co-op gets too big, that it forgets about its members, then you've got a problem. And that's why we at Maple Leaf don't feel that we want to get that big. I mean, we're sitting right now with about 15 farms. We wouldn't mind growing a little bit, but we don't want to grow to 100 farms. That's not our objective. Our objective is to stay small co-op, have specialty cheeses, and be competitive that way. Because you cannot compete with the big ones as far as cheddar and barrels or anything like that.
Mozzarella.
Yeah, they're mozzarella. Yeah. And so, although we do make a cheddar, we make a raw milk cheddar. We made a number of years ago, our cheesemaker said he'd like to run the cheddar mill right into the salt brine. Well, he talks differently of it now because we've got a few good markets. That's what they want is this cheddar. And he's got a little bit different twist on his starter culture, and he makes a different flavored cheddar. And so, that's your specialty cheeses. Cheddar is no longer. Cheddar is a specialty cheese as far as we're concerned.
Well, it's just wonderful with your attitude, because I think that's the future of America, where you have competition. That's what it is. And once you lose it, whether you get, I used to say, Duke had or whether Oscar Mayer had, it's all the same. But you still keep it in the cooperatives, and you're one in the state here that is keeping it going.
And we have to keep our young people excited about it, because John and I are not going to keep it going too many more years, so we have to keep the young guys involved and keep them excited about farming and try to make it so they can make a living that's not too bad. Thank you, John.
Wonderful wonderful.